Check, check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? You should be able to now. What's going on, coach?
I can hear you loud and clear, Coach. How's everybody going? Welcome back to At the Buzzer.
Welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. That is Coach Paul. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. This is our first time meeting. I'm Coach Jay. I've been a Topstep Performance Coach since June of 2023. Been trading for the past 12 years and in the futures markets for the past 5, and that is Coach Paul. Coach Paul, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Coach Paul. I've been with Top Step for about a year and a half. As a performance coach, I've been involved in the futures industry for 40 years, last 25 as a trader. I'm here to help share some of my experience and knowledge and then help you become a better trader. Are you ready to go, Coach?
Let's get into it. So, as far as news goes, we know we do have some earnings coming out here. We did have Google Alphabet reporting their earnings. Looks like a beat there. Earnings per share $2.12. What was estimated was 1.84. Beat on revenue as well, 88.27 billion. Estimate was 86.45 billion. I think the big thing coming up for Google is what they say as far as AI goes during their call. So that would be very interesting. We know Google and OpenAI, uh, that merger is a big thing for Google and moving into AI going forward. And then we have AMD reporting as well. AMD earnings per share, as expected, 92 cents, somewhat of a beat on revenue. And then watching AMD, we do know we have NVIDIA earnings coming up soon as well. So just kind of looking at that for the overall chip space. A lot of the Mag 7 companies, coach, right now are nearing all-time highs. I see near all-time highs in Meta, in Amazon, I believe in Alphabet as well. Tesla's a little off from that all-time high, but coming into this earnings season, we know how heavily weighted these companies are in the Nasdaq and the S&Ps. I saw that the Nasdaq Composite today made a new all-time high. We haven't seen it in the futures yet, but new all-time high in the Nasdaq Composite, which we could probably expect the futures to follow.
Why would that be, Coach?
Uh, there's more buyers than sellers.
There you go.
More buyers
All
than
right.
sellers. We can see that
More.
the headline here: Nasdaq touches a record as Alphabet prints strong earnings. Um, We did have some other planned news as well. We had U.S. JOLTS job openings coming out at 7.443 million. Forecast was 8 million. And the number that really pushed us up on the day, I believe, was that consumer confidence number that came in at 108.7, and what was forecast was 99.5. So consumers a lot more confident than expected. Anything else you have on that news, Coach?
Well, just nothing except for it. The Nasdaq sure liked it more than the S&P. Um, we kind of rallied from that point for the rest of the day. Um, so I mean, these weren't jolts tends to make move the market a little bit. So all of that. Next was the earnings. We're always going to have some kind of news, um, but base your trading on a plan and measure your risk.
100%. Let's get into the charts. There are about 35 different markets that we can trade with Top Step accounts, not all the equities, and we like to go over the top percentage movers on the day. And let's start with the downside. To the downside, we had soybeans down 0.61%, live cattle down 0.77%, and soybean meal down 0.92% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside. And to the upside, we had lean hogs up 2.54%, Micro Bitcoin futures, shout out to you, coach, up 3.89%, was a lot higher during the day. I believe that was over 5% at one point. And then micro Ethereum futures. So shout out to, I believe that was Scott Vaughn yesterday, who mentioned micro Ethereum. If you did trade it, 4.73% to the upside, biggest percentage mover on the day. I did look at micro Ethereum futures. I think the tick value of micro Ethereum is like 5 cents or something like that. So if you're a new trader and looking for a market that is not very risky, micro Bitcoin, micro Ethereum are decent places to look. To talk about our big four, we have the Nasdaq up 1.07%, gold up 1.04%, making a new all-time high today. The S&P is up 0.29%, and crude oil, where are you? I don't see crude on this list. There you go. Crude down 0.04% to round out our big four.
Yeah, crude was violently unchanged today.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Coach, let's go into the Nasdaq. We did have some house account trades in the Nasdaq today. Uh, we know Nasdaq Composite making a new all-time high. And here is the Nasdaq. I'm going to go to the first 30-minute open from last night. We'll attach a VWAP to that, which is that red line, and go from there. What were you seeing in the Nasdaq today, Coach?
Well, interesting. We didn't do much last night. We traded on both sides of the first half an hour, but if we notice, VWAP did not leave that range, so there was no conviction. I believe that market was waiting for jolts and earnings. But this morning, on the opening in the first half hour of the U.S. Open, I got to throw it out to Rips. He really nailed that market. Uh, um, we had that spike down, wick, um, and we frame that out and look at the and tag VWAP to that open
30 minutes of the New York
for
session.
yeah.
Let's get rid of this and frame that out because this is where the actual movement started.
What kind of action is that, Coach?
Extremely urgent.
Yeah.
Extremely
So what
urgent.
do we mean by that? Here, and it's funny that the Nasdaq was lower, um, and it got absorbed. So there was buying, and there was, and conversely, there was some shorts in there.
Yes, there were.
But the buyers came in heavy, hot and heavy. As if you were watching this morning, Rips noticed that there was a lot of underlying bids. And what did that reflect in VWAP? It left the opening range the first half an hour, after the first half an hour, and there was nothing. Well, I can't say nothing. There was more bids than offers, at the least, and we had a great rally. Never really came close to coming back to VWAP. Didn't even touch it. Very strong buying. Um, that it was steady all day.
Yeah.
I know
Go ahead, Coach.
we had that one tiny selling bar. I don't even consider that. What is that? That was even really, and then a small one. So if you were a buyer, you should have a good day. On selling, looking at the flows, you might have had a small chance, but wow, I'm glad
It
I
was
didn't.
tough.
It just, I mean, it got gobbled up. So very directional move.
Sure. Yeah, selling was tough at any point really today. Even if we go down to a shorter time frame, what I want to look at, Coach, is jolts because sometimes when we have that 9 a.m. news, We'll see the markets consolidate for that first half an hour, just to allow that news to come out. But if we do the same thing here and we attach VWAP to that Jolts candle, which was 9 a.m., even more supportive, right? We can look at this VWAP from there. As soon as it leaves that range, we actually do come and test that VWAP anchored from the news. And there's about a 30-point difference between the session New York session VWAP and that Jolts VWAP. So sometimes people ask, why do you use uh, the news anchor? Because it gives us some more recent information. And again, it was Jolts and consumer confidence out at the same time. I think consumer confidence is the reason we saw this move to the upside. But why doesn't matter as much of the fact that it did happen, right? The number was printed. We left this range with some volume, and like Rip said, you can see it. These higher lows here. Pretty much any checks of this VWAP were opportunities to buy, and then later on in the day, uh, that move really got going. Uh, if you were
Yeah.
counter trend, there was this move here, about 50 points available to you when we rejected at 650. But outside of that, there wasn't really much there.
Yeah, it was we, to beat a dead horse. There was bids. Um, so one of the big, you know, rewarding days for Nasdaq, considering all the choppiness we've been going through here for the last
For
week.
sure. For sure. If
Um,
we look at the 30-minute chart, coach, we're above that 200 moving average,
yes.
and breaking out of this consolidated range that we were in. I think we needed a close above 700 to say that we were out of that range. And let's see if we can continue up to the upside.
Yeah. Good movement.
The one thing I would be looking at in the Nasdaq, we are pretty close to all-time highs with some of these tech earnings coming out. All-time high in this Nasdaq contract, 21 to 14 half. We are less than 2.5% away right now from that all-time high. And the 2.5% move could happen as quickly as the Nasdaq wants it to. So we will see. We will see what happens. But it feels like the closer we get to it, the more possible it is. The one candle that I'm looking at, and I think we framed this one out yesterday, was from July 17th. If we look at the daily, uh, we can go July 17th, or actually at this point now we can go the July 11th candle. Coach, we know how important that July 11th date was. We've closed inside that candle. The low of the candle being 20,613, 50% being right at 20,915, and then the high at the all-time highs. We closed inside that candle on the daily. Uh, does
Yeah, that
price
was
start to accept this range and now trade back through it? Is the question. So 613 to the downside will be a level I'm looking for support.
uh, let's mark that down.
Let's just look at the S&Ps real quick, Coach. All-time highs in the S&P is 59.27. We used this yellow line on the daily as a support today. Um,
Yeah, that was a 20-day moving average. I believe that was at 44. We hit that on the opening half hour, and it didn't have quite the energy that the Nasdaq had. This was tech-led buying. Um, S&Ps were kind of dragged along in the aftermath.
They were, and we've seen the exact opposite, right? Where the S&P was a leader, and Nasdaq was lagging behind. But maybe coming into this tech earnings season, we talked earlier, Coach. It feels like it's always earnings season. Um, but the Nasdaq, I mean, sorry, the Nasdaq definitely leading the momentum towards the upside, and the ES kind of just trailing along. ES less than a 1% move from the all-time highs. And again, if the Nasdaq gets going, we can assume that the ES is potentially going to follow it and can make a new all-time high. 59.27 quarter is the all-time high in the ES.
Yeah, that looks pretty. It doesn't look bearish to me.
Not at
That
all.
can change in a moment. I don't, but yeah, I'm on the buy side.
would agree with you. Anything else on the equities that you want to talk about, Coach?
Um, it's interesting. Let's see what the Dow did.
Let's look at the
I didn't
Dow.
look at it at all. Yeah. So the flight to quality is that spread looks like it's being unwound. um, Now it's flight to, I guess, do you call Nasdaq unquality? I
Nasdaq is more like the flight to quick profits, where we know those things are going to move a little bit quicker, and you can sit through a little bit of the drawdown, but as soon as the Nasdaq or tech looks like it's going to run to the upside, we can assume that a lot of money is going to move that way. Um,
risk on.
risk is on for sure. We'll go to the 30-minute on the Dow. Um,
It's under
that
the
200,
200.
yeah, and it's sloping lower, kind of using it as a resistance right now. That's interesting. I'm not going to leave that alone.
Boy, I would use that to buy the other. Um, it very interesting. As we say, for the last month or two, the Dow has been the one leading the way.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. Dow made new all-time highs a couple weeks ago. It feels like now, maybe a week and a half ago. 43,581, and since then has gotten a pretty decent pullback. If we looked at the daily chart, it is still in that uptrend, but pulling back and holding the 50-day moving average now, which is right around 42,500. Um, and do we base here for another move up, or does the Dow keep selling and potentially trade down to this 200 moving average? We see we haven't used that 200 moving average in a little while, um, nor have we used
Yeah,
the 50 right in a month. So important level here for the Dow decision making time. Do we take our money out of the Dow and put it back into the Nasdaq?
yeah. There's allocation process, and it looks like it's like we just said, risk on.
Yep.
Um, get out of the longs in the Dow and buy the components in the Nasdaq. Um, how do I really know that? All I see is the technicals, and that's what money's doing.
Wanted to take a quick look at the Russell since we looked at all the other three, and holding that 200 moving average as well on the 30-minute. We checked down towards it today on the open and bounced up from it. Um, but again, Nasdaq is looking like the stronger one for now. All
Yeah.
right, let's move on here. Let's go to gold. Gold made new all-time highs today. This is gold on a 30-minute chart. And
Yeah.
we're back to the regularly scheduled program of gold going up. We talked about this consolidation that we were in, Coach, yesterday. Over the last 3 days, in a little bit of this consolidation that we've seen gold do, but holding above that 200 moving average on the 30-minute, the 20 well above the 50, clear distinction between the two, and broke out for a really nice trend today. Uh, urgency?
It was urgency last night.
Yep.
Now, on a fundamental note, this is if you've traded gold for any amount of time, you follow gold. There's always been the well, how do I say it? There's been a cry that the banks are holding gold down. Uh,
Do the banks have any money left?
yeah, well, that's a good question. Because it's hard. I mean, just the central banks of the BRICS countries are purchasing gold and moving it into their vaults. Um, the urgency and the velocity of this gold move replicates that theory to me. Um, Something's going on, and something's going to break. Right now, you could see gold just explode. I'm not saying, by the way, this isn't a prediction, but under this, with the way we've seen about buying the dips and the chart, It's, it, don't even sell it short term. I just let it let it go.
Yeah, any downward movement is an opportunity to buy gold right now, and
Um,
you
yeah,
could, but how much? It has to be almost the perfect trade.
it has to be pinpoint. I'm not that good. If you're that good, take it. But just be quick. Um, mm, don't get stuck because look, as you can see, when it comes back, it's unforgiving. Um, but a very interesting play going on here in the gold. I'd also like to look at silver. I could be the one that really outperforms them all because um, silver has a way of doing that. When it catches up, it just it'll all of a sudden it'll be $20 higher, and nobody's going to say, "What happened to silver?" Um,
I know we have one fan of silver in the chat. I could see him just saying yes, please, to silver analysis. Has been buying silver pretty much all year, so we will definitely get into that. Gold, the one really nice. I think if we just look from a day trade perspective, if you didn't catch it overnight, let's just go to the equity open, which was right here. Um, and just continuing that theme of urgency, we had last week's high at 27.72. Um, and a quick pullback. I think the guys in the house account were looking for a potential trade here, but we're in a Nasdaq trade at the time. But a pullback to 27.75 gave a decent opportunity. And if we look at gold on a daily chart, half of a daily ATR puts us above 2,800, making a new all time high. Daily ATR in gold right now is about 31 points. One full daily ATR move from where we are right now would put us at 28.16, but not a train that I see stopping anytime soon.
yeah, um, it's a runaway train.
Look at silver.
Oh,
We zoom out. Silver is making highs that we haven't seen. You know, we broke out earlier this year above a 4-year high in silver, which was right around $31 even. We came back, checked that over the last couple of days, and made a new high of this year at 35.07. Today, trading 34.61. Now, Coach, you said this is one that you could see breaking out pretty aggressively. Uh,
yeah. Well, look at that. Above the 200. It's been lagging. The focus has been on the gold. After that, it'll gold will drag thing everything with it. Was that an urgency trade? Yes, it was. Why
yes,
didn't
it
you count
was.
me? I did buy the platinum, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Wasn't as yeah,
Not as
wasn't as
dramatic.
dramatic as that, but it was. I mean, it helped my bottom line today. Let's put it that way. Wow. So I'm keeping an eye on silver. If you're going to trade silver, trade the micros. It's a monstrously big contract. It's $50 a penny. And what's the average true range in the half hour?
Screw range in the half hour is, let's get to when the market's really moving. About 14,
14, $750. Um,
28 ticks. 28 ticks. Sorry about that.
28 ticks. So 15, little less than 15, 14, $1,600. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Um, it's a lot. Um, but that chart looks really healthy to me. Um, it's another market to watch. But it's a little less liquid than gold. They're going to do it. And it's a little choppier, but boy, we're holding that big rally from what a couple weeks ago. That dramatic. See, you can see that melt up at any time. I'm
This is
playing for
a
the melt up.
6% move, and that was in about a day. So yeah,
Yeah. Um, that along with Bitcoin. Um, the war is on. To me, this all could happening around the BRICS meeting. Um, they want to attack the dollar, uh, and it's there's a financial war going on, in my humble opinion, reflected in the metals and in Bitcoin. S-
For sure. Yeah, this is just a really nice rally. Again, from a technical perspective, we can talk about this all the time, but it's the same setup. We see that urgency not only giving us, pretty good trade location for a day trade on this breakout of this range, a retest of the range with, volume above it, giving a decent opportunity as well. But then if you were not trading during the Asian and London session, even by the time we got to the New York session, that VWAP acting as a support, which I think is really important if you're trading silver, really in any market, but definitely if you're trading the bigger contract in silver, trade location is extremely important, right? Not a market that you're just like, oh, it's going up, so I'm going to buy it, because a pullback could wipe out your account before it eventually goes in your way. So um, when it's trending like this, I think being patient, maybe not exactly off of VWAP, but anything close to it gives you an opportunity to limit your risk in what is a pretty big contract. For volume comparison purposes, silver traded 70,660 contracts today. Gold traded about 175,000. So a little less than one and a half, a little more than one and a half in gold. Uh, but 70,000 contracts, still enough volume to trade. Um, just want to manage your risk by trading the smaller contract.
Yeah, interesting.
Where do we go from here? Crude oil violently unchanged.
But a good, there was good movement on both sides. For there was opportunity, but at, we're still inside Sunday night's gap. Came to the bottom. Look at that. Today's high was the bottom of that opening range. The opening half hour was rejected, um, and made new lows for the week. Did we? What was that low we were looking at the month, a couple months ago? Yeah, that's
55.74 down here, and then another one at 63.50.
um, it's interesting. Energy prices are low comparatively.
Yeah.
I hear all these arguments. This is not part of the inflation equation. Um, I'm going to be driving back home to Chicago from Cleveland area. Um, I've been here for 10 days and gas has fallen off 35 cents a gallon. Um, so keep that up. Um, the powers that be. I like cheap gas. No, but seriously, um, slow movement to the downside. There was some good trades in there, um, but not as dramatic as the metals, um, or the natural gas for that reason. But there's no shortage of crude oil. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
we
old.
keep saying
I
that, right? There
remember.
there are no supply concerns.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember the peak oil. We were supposed to be out of oil at this point, and mysteriously, we're finding more and more oil. There's plenty of oil around. So I don't really care about the fundamentals because I trade technicals. I took my beating over the weekend. I am a little short, and I'm playing the short side. Um, Anything else than that is just an interesting talk for me. Like I said, I'm a technician. And if you're a day trader, um, the fundamentals really don't really matter. It's a fraction of time that you have a chance to trade. Um,
Would agree with that. I think the way that I use fundamentals more than anything is understanding how volatile markets can be, with planned. headlines, right? And maybe scaling around that. But at the end of the day, especially for a day trade, I have to click the button and get in and out of a trade in a fairly short period of time, right? Even if I hold a trade an entire session, right, from Globex open to close, it's a fairly short trade in the grand scheme of things. So to me, paying attention to the technicals coach makes a lot more sense as well. I know D was talking about potential downside to 65 in crude oil. Uh, we're consolidating right now, which not surprising after this huge gap down. Let's see if we get any continuation of that move. We are below that 200 moving average and looking like we're trending lower. So we will see from there. And that kind of rounds up our big four. We did that pretty quick. So if you do guys
Yeah.
do have any questions, let us know. But coach, also I know that there were some other markets that we probably could spend some more time on, and Bitcoin being one of them. Here is micro Bitcoin on a 30-minute chart. Go ahead, coach.
Yeah, that was our part of our scouting report. And boy, did that work out. That was um, that was urgency trade. So if we come into last night's open on Globex and we attach a VWAP to that, the low, look at that. We gapped. There's a tiny gap there. We gapped, held, and now I just, and looking at this, what happened? We gapped higher and we held the low, and we held the VWAP for about until Europe, I think. But someone wants it, and this is after that huge gap from Sunday night. So it's gapping and going. And these are runaway markets. Wow, did it fall off at the close? By the way, I did. hmm, after I got out way up there, I just oh, by the way, oh, that was it on a wasn't it? I thought I saw an engulfing candle. Um, yeah, there was.
Just went up at the top here.
Yeah, that one. I got out. I put my stop in on underneath that. Um, but once again, we see this on that opening, and when we were looking for it. But look at how it. I don't care if it's Bitcoin, soybeans, Nasdaq, heating oil. As a technician, um, what's the trend? Well, if you put the 200 bar moving average on there, to me, that's the trend. Okay. Now, in the openings, like we look at the f- opening half hour, are the buyers still there? Are they in control, or are the sellers come in? Um, looking at the action from last night, what selling was there?
None at all.
All right. And so when you hear me talk about taking one side, that's what I talk about. If it went down and I didn't make the trade, I'm good. Um, but if it goes up without me, I'm not doing my job. Um, so this was a clean trade. Um, and the flow was spot on. Did it hit all-time highs?
For this, yeah, it did. No, no. For this contract, no. 77,140 is the all-time high that I'm seeing in this futures contract, and that was back in March of 2024. Let me check spot Bitcoin. Uh, Spot Bitcoin price is at 72,908, which I believe are all-time highs.
Okay.
Nope,
So
73,777 all-time highs.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, if I didn't happen to, I was with my son, and he got a text that it hit 72,000. He, he's- he owns Bitcoin, and I'm like, oh, that's good. I would, if you asked me the price, and I'm not bragging, I'm just saying, that's how firmly I'm attached to flow. To me, that, like I said, that could be Bitcoin, crude oil, corn, um, you name it. But great trade. I'm flat right now. We'll
Nice
see
trade,
what
coach.
happens in the first half an hour. I am wary of that engulfing candle off the highs.
We are
I,
about 5% off the high in this futures contract. Maybe a little bit of a pullback,
yeah.
but we'll see some of these major levels if they decide to hold. 72,000 is the one I'm looking at right now.
And by the way, if you're asking, micros trade in 50-cent increments on a and if you might say, well, I need more than that. Well, yeah, a two lot today was a $700 trade for about $100 risk. Now this was you don't see this every day, but it's something you can trade without the fear of, of losing the account. Um, so, like I said, I think at one time this is going to be one of the bigger um, instruments in the futures portfolio.
Traded 77,000 contracts today. So the volume is there in this market. And really nice trend. Great trade coach. And again, on the scouting report. And those scouting reports are not suggestions to take trades. It's just what us as coaches are looking at for potential opportunities. And if I had to ask you, coach, what's on your scouting report, wouldn't be surprised if you said Bitcoin again. And you gave us silver as well.
Tomorrow, I don't really, in front of the unenjoyment report,
Right.
um, I don't really have anything. Gold.
Yeah, right.
No, in all
That's an
sincerity, I
easy one.
don't have anything. I'm paring down. Um, we've been finding an unenjoyment report that monthly. This isn't your. This is this has a little weight to it. So I'm paring down. Um, when we talk about trade, especially we're day trading here, let them step in. Let the professionals who have to be in the trade step in front of the cannon, um, and then trade after that. We've been talking um, about this for all the major numbers, and this is one of them. Don't be a hero. We're not here to be a hero. We're
Mhm.
here to trade.
So there was a question, and pretty good question. How do you get into these urgency trades? Uh, I always seem to be waiting for volume to exit the range, and then it's too late to get an entry. It depends. It depends on how it leaves the range. How did you get into this one, Coach? You traded micro Bitcoin today. I know what my entry criteria is depending on the market, but how did you get into micro Bitcoin today?
Okay, let's go to the half an hour.
Okay, half hour.
Blow it up, make it big, so we can like it really large, so we can yeah. So let's look at it last night. Here's the first half an hour. Um, now I bought one because I wanted one. And I risked two average true ranges. Um, yeah, it came out to like $150. Um, then I waited for it to break out of the range with VWAP. Now, someone says if you can see here, I got a little early because I was aggressive here. Um, if you see when we closed right at the high of the opening, it was making new highs for the night, and VWAP was right there versus towards the bottom of the range. This is an important distinction. See, this half an hour, what did VWAP do? It moved dramatically. It didn't just stay straight. And I see someone asked in the comments, Sometimes I wait. There's a little distinction, and this is the distinction. The buying was immediate at that point. The buyers were present. They were that was they were buying it all the way up versus it the VWAP, like most of the day today in the S&P, the VWAP was still a lot lower than the current price. So it wasn't an urgency. That's why it felt a little heavy. Here, as we see that half an hour took VWAP up quickly. So if we think of the formula, volume weighted average price, well, that volume moved it versus going sideways. So once I saw that, I got in. I right when it made a new high, higher than when it left the opening range. I just got in another one after it broke the high of that high.
So
I
what I will say about this, and I think with anything, and coach, I almost hear it in your voice where you are saying you preempted the trade, but
yeah,
sometimes that's the discretionary uh, move that we have to make when we're traders. But I think you develop feel at a certain point, and you get to that point, right? You've been doing this for a very long time, um, and I think even with us as coaches, and this goes for the chat, sometimes what is theory and what's reality is a little bit different. But we have to, I think, as coaches, go with the theories first because we want to try to describe the highest probability example of this setup. Now, if you're a beginner trader and you're looking for this setup, what I would say is don't preempt this because at this point, coach, you had a feeling that this was going to keep going up.
yeah, it
A
was on
pre-
my it
it was on
was
your scouting report for a reason,
yeah. And we
right?
had a gap open where we held the low of the opening range. So and it's a good point. I actually with working with you and volume, this reminds me of being in the pit and watching a big order come in. You're right in front of it. You're like all of a sudden the broker, the entity that was buying starts yelling into new highs. And you're like, I'm gonna get in front of him or her, no matter it. Um, and that had that flavor. Now remember, I bought one unit and I could go back and don't get into this trick. God damn it, I should have bought 10. No, no. I want to tell you, I was willing to take I added another on a stop, willing to risk 300 now. I'll put it like if you play poker and you got dealt an ace, right? And then another ace comes up. I think you got really good information now. Your risk parameters have now changed. I'm willing to risk not my whole wad, but I'm willing to risk. Now I can be aggressive. Uh, First one, I was assertive. Yeah, I just bought one, but th- like this is a little different, and this is a nuance. As you get experience and you're get better with your when you see things. That was a great point, Coach.
Yeah.
Versus, even if I waited for that to close, I have a
This
little
close
more
up here,
risk.
yeah, you're
Yeah,
definitely risking a lot more. But then at this point, I think this is where we're saying, and maybe you wait for a pullback as close as you can to volume. Right now, we get a little bit of a pullback. It doesn't get there exactly, but I
eventually
want
it
to
did.
be yeah be clear with this. Wait for the pullback. If it's that good of a trade, more often than not, it gives us an opportunity. Now, where did this pullback happen? Look at this big candle that broke us out of the range. At this point, this is not a coincidence.
No, it's
50% of that range checks, VWAP holds, and it gives you an opportunity. Now, what this is asking is for you to be extremely patient. But remember, sometimes we're coaching people who are very new to this, and we want you to not jump into as many trades as you see in a day, right? We want you to try to take A plus setups. Um, I, I'll tell you, sometimes I see this. If it's a market that I think is going up, I'm buying this low because this VWAP is a flat line, and I'm buying the low of the range because it's not
okay.
showing me that it wants to break down, and I'll preempt it. But that is a little bit of a feel thing, and I think anytime you do anything for a long enough time, you start to develop that feel, right? It's, oh, well, I could have taken it here, um, based on prior knowledge, but uh, sometimes it's being patient and just sh- allowing the market to show you that there's potentially more room up, and then getting in at a better price than them. And sometimes you have to
And
wait. But if you woke up trading New York session, this gave you an opportunity right at that 50% for pretty much all of that trade with limited to no drawdown.
it's a great example because let's bring up platinum. It was a little different, and I made the same trade to start. So if we go to the first half an hour,
And
all
who
right?
was that in the chat? Give me 1 second. Somebody said I didn't answer their question. The Hayes records. We are going to answer your question. I saw that. It's a really good question. We're going to answer that. You're talking about taking profits. Right now, we're talking about entries. So then we'll talk about the second half of the trade right after this. But go ahead, Coach.
Okay, if we blow that up so we can see the first half an hour trade and frame it out. All right, now we attach VWAP. Uh, Platinum has been on the radar as a buy. Um, I bought it in the first half an hour. Now it did tick up. I got ticked out. I put a stop in the new lows, and believe it or not, that was me. That was that was
Coach Paul
me.
was right. Coach Paul
Yeah.
was right here. You can see him.
So I got ticked out, and I lost like $120. So one thing is, I didn't get short. Why? VWAP never left the range, and the volume was still there. So when it broke out again, so I had a loss here, but it was a reasonable loss. Another thing, I'm not over leveraged, and I have to say this a lot. Don't get over leveraged because then you can't you can't play the game. You can't withstand any heat. Now the second time I bought it when it closed, and I bought it there and held it till like 6:30 Central Time, and I just got out because it
Great
was one
trade.
of those trades. And I didn't. I'm playing for that. And I just want to describe this. I'm playing for the upside, willing to take the downside, going again to a poker or a blackjack. When the cards, you don't know till you get dealt the cards. Then you get more information. Now I can be aggressive or assertive. Aggressiveness leads to recklessness. I, I gotta point that out. But that second trade, I'm willing to take it. If that first trade, I said, here, hold my beer. I'm buying 10. I'm done. I can't take the second trade.
I just lost my charts for a second. We'll bring them back up. Here we go. There they are.
All right. So I hope that answers the question of when it leaves. There's nothing guaranteed about this trade. And I'm going to tell you here, I I'm a much larger account than a 3,000 or 5,000. I traded one. Now I'm trading in 10 different places. I rarely have 10 different positions, but I just want to really impress upon our audience where, because I used to do it when I was a younger trader. I'd be aggressive. Oh, fuck, this is going higher. I need more than one. I need 10. and then I get stopped out. Now instead of $150, it's $1,500.
And says he appreciates that answer. Thanks again. So great answer, Coach. And a really good one, right? Because we get to see the markets like this every day, and I've seen some people say, "Oh, well, this is hindsight. How do you get in?" Sometimes you just got to click the button, and not everyone is going to work. And like Coach just said, you click the button, you take the risk. This is a trade I like. The risk was managed. You got stopped out, and you could say, I'm throwing this trade idea out, or you go back to it when it eventually gives you a higher probability. Right? This is why, to me, I would say this is uh, a 55% probability trade, right? Where we know that higher time frame it's moving, but it's 55% probability because the market hasn't moved yet. So is there potential for me to get stopped out before it moves? At this point, I'm saying it's a 70% probability that I'm not going to get stopped out of this trade because I'm in the flow with the market. Um, the question from Hayes Records was, how do you guys recommend taking profits? Jay once said, the market will tell me, hence no take profit, but I always end up getting bit trying to squeeze more than what the trade's worth. So I'm going to speak to that second point of it first. You always get bit trying to squeeze more out of the markets. I don't think that should be happening if you're trailing your stops. Now, if I get long in platinum here at the high of this opening range, or let's say I get long here at 1046. If I get long here and the market pushes up all the way to 1057, there's no way that the market comes back to my entry without me taking something off the table, right? So if I think there's more, and it also depends what type of trade that you're entering. If it's a range bound trade, I'll have a target where I'm looking to get out likely before that target. Coach, give me 1 second. I need to move this dog because she's give me 1 second. Let me move her real quick. I'll be right back.
Don't move her. It's
Go
not
ahead. Go ahead.
bothering us. All right. I will. My answer to that is day trading. 2 to 1. So, and this one, I risked 150. If I get 300, I've done my job. I had to make this transition. Um, I'm a better swing trader than a day trader. I'm making because I'm in a swing trade. I'm looking for 12 to 1 trades. Um, you're not going to 12 to 1 in a day time frame is like a 57-yard pass with 2 seconds to go and you get a touchdown. It never happens. Oh wait, it did happen once this weekend, but 99.9% of the time it doesn't happen. It's 12 to 1. 2 to 1 is a good trade. I on a daytime frame. So if you could do 2, then you can look for an extension and pay for it. In platinum, there's no micros or minis, but if I did the 2 platinum, which I wouldn't myself, now I'm risking $300. It's a different story now. I'm taking more risk. I might not be comfortable in it. But if you can get 2 to 1 on a trade, on a day trade, I'm kind of done. With micros, and if it's a different story, if you could do 4 micros in an account, and you get 2 to 1 on those 4. Boom, take 2 off, put the other to unchanged, and see if you can get that extension. But you need, the coach just said it. There's no way I'm letting this go back down to unchanged without taking something off.
Something
Yeah,
off.
because think of it as you're a hunter. You know,
Right.
you, you had it and you let it get away. You go hungry. You'll be the hungry hunter. It's
Yeah,
the
and
name of a
now you're eating
vegetarian
anything, right?
restaurant.
And now you're eating poison berries, because because you let your food get away, and then you end up. I mean, that's a great analogy. Yeah, Yeah, so taking something off the table, right? Where if I believe it's a trend trade, I'm going to try to trail to a place where I think the market is going to hold, and hopefully it doesn't come and tag me out. Now, in doing this, I'm accepting the fact that the market may come. Let's say I trailed to right here, which, if you can see this, there's a reason this is too tight of a trail, because the market showed that since it broke up, it's okay with trading these prices and may come back here, right? So my trail is going to be in a place where the market showed, at least for some period of time, it has not traded these prices and it doesn't want to, right? So now hopefully that's in a place where the market doesn't want to come and revisit. If the trend is still strong, we can see it's below VWAP, giving the market the opportunity to test that VWAP and test some of these lows. And then I trail from there. Now from here, as we push up, I might trail up here to 1055. At this point, the market comes and stops me out if I don't trail again. Um, Knowing myself, I probably would trail again. Um, I'd probably trail to these highs right here and say if we break these highs, then I want to be out and go from there.
Okay. I hope that helps. Um, and by the way, we all have different risk personalities. Um, and find it. If you can't, like I said, if you first of all, you have to define the risk that you're willing to take. Without it, you're trading on feel. I highly discourage that because you're not managing it, you're feeling it. Um, and what what happens? Well, like when I was young, we were taught to be tough, right? I came from a classic male background to take pain. A lot of my coaches fought in wars. They're like, it's only a flesh wound kind of thing. The problem is, if you're in trading and you can take pain and you're trading on feel, what's going to happen when you start losing? I could tough this one out. I'll wait.
Feelings.
More, yeah, they can go both ways. Um, so measuring out your risk is so important. Um, I I I can't say it enough. So not just finding a trade, look at that trade, and then put on too many. And how many times has this happened to people? It's- you get stopped out because you had too much on, and then it goes the way you originally saw it. I think that's universal. And then you see on the hero worship on certain social platforms. They never tell you about the beating they took. It's all about the winning. So
Of course.
frame out that risk in your process and be willing to take the risk or don't take the trade.
Couple more questions here. Just want to rapid fire through some of these. Water fasting results.
Great
Does
question, Nelson.
does your strategy
Would you
change?
rather a high win
Coach, can you hear me?
percentage with no risk management or risk management with low win percentage? I would rather have a high percentage with risk management. I wouldn't do it without risk management. Um, because you never know one of those high percentages, and that goes to the stats, and we could do this someday. If that high percentage winner, I'm making two ticks, but and it's an 85, 90% winner, but the loser is 300 ticks, which is possible, and then I didn't get anywhere.
Got another question here, and Coach, I realize you couldn't hear me for a little bit, but the chat could. Water fasting results also asks, does your strategy change between the Dow and the Nasdaq? No, I hope the one thing that we showed in this is that the strategy does not change based on the market. The position sizing may, right, whether it's micros or a more volatile market, but the strategy stays exactly the same. I think the analysis that we did for every chart that we've pulled up since we started this has included some form of the moving averages and then an opening range with volume. So no, and that's ideally I think where most traders want to be. You have an idea of how you analyze a chart and then you apply it to the chart that is giving you the best opportunity to trade that specific setup. So I think if you were changing strategies based on each market that you were trading, I'd probably suggest you trade one market.
Yeah, I agree. If you're starting out, yeah, that's fundamental. So, uh, Coach Jay and I are also basketball coaches. I train kids starting in third grade. I've coached varsity high school boys basketball. And let me tell you, without the fundamentals, when you get into a higher level and you don't have the fundamentals mastered, it it's going to show, and it's going to show in a bad way. Um, so the fundamentals, if you're starting, master those in one place. Then you can start looking at other markets. But without the fundamentals, what are you relying on? Luck? I mean, and I'm not being, think about it, you're relying on luck. And I'll quote it again with my favorite blues song. If it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Um, Luck goes both ways. So develop a process. Like, and it was a great question. What I it with risk management, so that you're comfortable in taking trades. Time and time again in my personal trading, and I've worked with over 1,000 traders. Without that risk management, you're in the trade. Now what? You're relying on emotions. Have an exit strategy, right? If you don't have an exit strategy, you can get lost real easily.
Time. I got one more question for you, Coach, from Paul H. I look at the same setup across multiple markets, and I think Paul's looking at that 30-minute opening range breakout from Globex and some opening range breakouts. I hear you say you take one lot in many different markets. Can you explain how you watch all, please? And then while you're doing that, I had a request to see my dog. So here she is. These are the two. There's Daisy on the right side, Layla on the left side. Layla is actually a boxer that we had to put down earlier this year, but Daisy is the one who is always joining me under my desk. So there they go.
Awesome.
Go ahead, Coach.
Thanks
How
for
do
that,
you?
coach.
No problem. How do you look at many different markets?
Because I trade small, like I said, instead of being 10 lot trader in one market, I spread I'm a big believer in the diversification. I spread my trades looking for that certain trade. Remember, it's on a half an hour basis. So on the opening, I go through those 10 markets, just click and see which one has that DNA. And it's sometimes, a lot of times, there's zero. I don't think I've ever had 10. Um, I mean, but when I see it, that's the one I want to do. So, some background of that. Why? Um, on the floor, when I was at the Mid America Commodity Exchange, which was the original, was across the street from the Board of Trade. It'd been around as long as the Board of Trade. It was, they called it an odd lot trade exchange. Anyway, the traders there, it's where you would learn. And if all the pits were like next to each other in a row, now if you were standing in a soybean pit and all of a sudden there's, you could hear the action, and there was two pits down at literally about 10 steps, you wanted to go there if you and trade there. Um, so I got used to just markets. didn't matter what it was. I didn't have to know what a soybean was. I had to know this was busy. If it's busy, there's opportunity. I had to lose a lot to figure out. Oh, you have to have risk management too. Um, and so I'm used to looking at many different markets. So to me, I just click down it when it opens, which one is in play, which one is in play. Oh, then I'm just looking at those markets. And a
Like
lot of
if you
times
can know
I'm
what you're looking for, it makes that process really quick, right? I think sometimes, coach, if you wait until like 7 p.m. Central, you can go through 15 charts in a matter of minutes and see which one is presenting the opportunity to you. We'll end it here because we're going a little bit over time. But Function X2 actually has a question similar to this: is it better to specialize in a market or have more A plus opportunities across markets? That's going to depend on you. I think if you ask both of us, it's identifying opportunities across a couple of different markets. That way, you spread your risk. Coach, we've talked about this all the time. Some are going to work and some aren't, but you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. That's just an opinion. You heard Isaac Rivera, who's been on the Topstep leaderboard, has had his live account for a year today, saying he only trades the S&P. It doesn't look
yeah.
at anything else, right? So it really is a preference thing at that point. Um, I think for me, it's good to look at different markets because if the market that I'm looking at every day is not presenting an opportunity, I'm probably going to make one up, and I don't want to do that. I want the market to tell me that there's a trade instead of me saying, "Well, I got to take something." It's not a great place to be, in my opinion. So, show me which market is moving, and I'll go there.
Okay, great. And once again, we'll go back to this. Master one market. Spend time in that. Learn the fundamentals, and then you can develop an eye for a place to execute your trading plan. One last thing. One of the biggest traders um, in the bonds was cover of Forbes. They quoted him. They did stories on it in Wall Street Journal. You probably never heard of his name. Tom Baldwin made hundreds of millions of dollars in the bonds on the floor, 30-year bonds. Um, when that went away, he went to different. He tried to trade stocks or invest in stocks, got clobbered. He did do some real estate, but he's not there anymore. He lost. I think I heard he lost a chunk of it and stopped trading. So, I mean, if you have develop a program with some talent, my thesis is this: if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And I'll leave with that.
Thank you. If you want to get your trades roasted by Jack and Ben, we are having a special edition of Roast My Trades on Halloween. Fill out that form to get your trades roasted. All in good fun, of course. But
That's
and if you ever heard Jack do it, Jack wrote for The Onion, so he's a pretty funny dude. So give him some content to talk about there, to roast your trades. Outside of that, Thursday we will be having Nick Fortick on as the first guest on At the Buzzer. We have Apple and Amazon earnings after the close on Thursday. Nick, being a former Amazon employee, is going to be joining us for that earnings and for that session of At the Buzzer. And then another special guest on a Top Step show, Coach Ray is going to be joining Deanna for the London Open at 3:30 a.m. Central Time on Thursday. I got nothing else, Coach. Thank you as always. Traders, trade well. Let's see if we got any new news tomorrow to be aware of. U.S. GDP number, ADP employment change. Don't trade there in those numbers, or if you do, you know, manage your risk, but we talk about it all the time. Trading the after effect of those numbers is going to give you a better opportunity to manage your risk and have a better trading day. So we will talk to you all tomorrow.
have a good one.
Have a good one,
Bye.
and we will see you then. Bye.